And now we begin the first module, which is called Communication Principles. I would like to ask from you before I begin, what's your understanding of this particular training? When we say communication principles, what is your idea of business communication or any type of principles that you must keep in mind while you are communicating in a business situation?
Clarity.
Clarity, yes, that's very important. Otherwise, the receiver will not understand what we are trying to communicate. Anything else?
Way of talking.
Way of talking, yes, because communication does not necessarily mean writing. You may be talking to your stakeholders, customers, clients, or internal team members, and so your speaking, your speech pattern or your way of speaking should also be clear and understandable. What else?
Understand the customer's requirement.
Their requirement, understanding. Now, again, this means we are going to the passive skills because you see, when you write and when you speak, that is your active skill. Then at that time, the one who has to understand is the receiver. Now, when you've got to also understand before you respond, that means reading and listening. These are passive skills. So, yes, a complete communicator is one who does not just know how to write well or speak well, but who can also first understand the situation and is patient and attentive to read carefully what the query is or what the concern is, or to listen attentively if they're sharing it with you on a call. And only then you can come up with your response. So that will be complete communication. And so we will be covering almost every aspect of communication in this entire curriculum. Now, before we go to what is how to communicate in business situation, let's first understand what is communication in general, whether business or whether a general situation. How does communication really work? There is a process, and this process is a two-way process. It takes place when information and understanding is transferred from the sender to the receiver. It can take place through any media. So it can just be audio, it can be audio plus visual, or just visual. So depends. Telephone calls, business calls is an example of just audio, while an email or report it is an example of just visual. On the other hand, online programs or e-learning programs are a blend, right? Because you can hear the audio and you can also read at the same time. Even this instructor-led training program is utilizing multimedia because while you are watching the slides and reading, you are also listening to the audio that complements the reading. So this is multimedia. Now let's understand what is important to know about this process. So there is always a sender and there is always a receiver. And in between, there is a gap. What will bridge the gap? The message that the sender wants to convey, then the channel that the sender will utilize to convey, and then it will come to the receiver's end that they will have to decode the message and then they will be able to understand and receive the message. So there are two main pauses here. One is channel and one is decoding. To ensure that the channel has been utilized well is the responsibility of the communicator or the sender of the communication, which means if I am using written communication as my channel and my language is English, then I have to ensure that all the rules of English, all the rules of writing and everything that can be related to that is working well. Otherwise the communication will be distorted. Once I ensure that the channel has no problems, and now the receiver is responsible to decode the message, there can still be problems at this stage, which means despite a good written piece of content, someone who's reading it is not reading attentively or is not able to follow everything that's written. And so the problem is at the decoding stage. That can also happen. And that is when, again, the responsibility of the communicator or the sender is to clarify. is to modify the message or explain what is meant. And how would you know that they are not able to decode well, despite the fact that everything was structured well? That is through feedback. So feedback is the most important criteria to decide whether the communication will be successful or not. Only by writing well, I cannot always say that this is a successful communication. If the receiver has not understood, it is not successful. So it was my responsibility to ensure that there are no previous mistakes in my communication, and then also that they are able to follow everything. If there is a gap in the knowledge, so the subject matter knowledge that the sender has and the same knowledge that the receiver has can be very different at different levels. So if the receiver does not have a background knowledge and finds gaps in the communication or feels that this is somewhere disconnected, that is the responsibility of the communicator to bridge those gaps. Maybe initially the communicator might not feel that it's important to explain everything in that detail, but that totally depends on that unique customer or that unique receiver at that time. How much do they really follow? And there is no one size fits all here. People have different levels of knowledge on a particular subject or topic. Their queries are always unique, even if the situation is standard.